Hello, welcome to my February reading journal. So today is the 3rd of February, and as promised we're going to start this reading journal with a library haul. So if you watch my January video, you'll see that for the last couple of days in January I was desperate to try and get to the library, and I had some obstacles to face to try and get to one, but I did manage to get to a library that was open, and I got out 6 books. 4 of these are fiction, 2 are non-fiction, and I imagine this is going to be most of what I'm reading this month. So, let's start. Sadly, I now have my first DNF of the year, and that is Mr. Cadmus. The premise of this sounded so promising. 2 spinster women living in a village in houses that are next door but one to one another. And then a mysterious gentleman moves into the house in between them and stirs up all kinds of old memories and past secrets, and it's described as a darkly witty fable. So all the things I normally really love, and it's only a small book, but I got 80 pages in and just realised I wasn't having a good time. There was something about the tone that felt off. There was also twice in like the first 80 pages mentions of quite serious assaults, and the tone of that, it's not like it lingered on those in a way that was inappropriate, but it did feel like they were put there for shock value without really holding the weight of those instances, and it just felt a bit out of place and made me feel a bit uncomfortable. And one of the things I've promised myself this year is that I want to read more for fun and for pleasure and less out of obligation. So 8 pages in, I realised that I wasn't enjoying the book, so I skipped and I read the last 5 or 10 pages just to see if this was going to go somewhere that I was really invested in, and I found that no, even reading the last chapter didn't really spark my curiosity, so this one hasn't been for me. It might be for somebody else, but it wasn't for me, so I put that down. So then I started my next book, and this is what I'm currently reading, and that is The Marmalade Diaries. This is a work of non-fiction. So the author, Ben, moves in to a house share with an 85-year-old woman about 10 weeks before a lockdown starts during the coronavirus pandemic. So this is like a journal of their friendship and their life stories and how they kind of rubbed alongside one another during a lockdown. And how far? Do you know what? I think I'm 80 pages into this one too. Am I? Yeah, I'm on page 80. I'm on page 80 of this book, and so far I am really enjoying this. I'm enjoying the tone. It's quite cosy, it's charming, it's reflective. The stakes are quite low, but I feel like there's a depth of reflection and a sweet humour in this, and I'm really enjoying it. So this is quite a gentle read, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a bit of a tonic at the moment. So the other 4 books that I've got, I haven't started reading yet, so I can't tell you that much about them. On the Marsh is another work of non-fiction. I think this is a bit of nature writing and about countryside and farming. The tagline is "A year surrounded by wildness and wet." So yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting piece of nature writing, and I quite like nature writing. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Then I've got The Escape. This sounds quite fun. It's a crime novel, so an influencer couple get gifted somehow through a crowdfunding video. They get gifted a French chateau, and they move in there and they start vlogging their restoration of the chateau, and then they disappear and the sister has to go and investigate why. Then I have, in a similar vein, The Whispering House. So this is another one where there is a creepy old house, somebody's gone missing or has died in mysterious circumstances, and again a sister goes to investigate. And I think there's also something about a portrait, either a haunted portrait or a mysterious portrait, something to do with art. Just sounds fun. I really am a sucker for creepy old house stories. I love them, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And then the last one is called The Lip. This is about an isolated woman who lives in a caravan on the north coast of Cornwall. And so I think she's a bit of an eccentric woman. She doesn't really like interacting with people. She likes staying on the fringes and observing other people. And then a mysterious stranger turns up and causes change and chaos. So those are the books I'm going to be reading in February. It's still the 3rd of February. I forgot to say that I'm also listening to an audiobook. I'm listening to Cloud Atlas, which I'm a little bit intimidated by. I have seen the film. I don't really know what to expect from the book experience, but we'll give it a go. And seeing as it's a dry day and I've really been neglecting the garden lately, I'm going to come out, do some weeding of the flower bed behind me, and listen to the audiobook. Okay, I'm going to start on that. I feel like I've made some good progress there. Hopefully if it's dry, I'll do the rest of the flower bed tomorrow and listen to more of Cloud Atlas. So far so good, taking a little bit of time to get used to this storyline. This is still fresh enough for me that I can't remember any character names, which is not unusual. I've now set up my reading journal for 2024 and this is how it's looking. So here is my books read in 2024 spread. Again, like I said before, I've kept it really simple. I love my bright yellow background and I'm just going to write my titles in there. If I read too many books to neatly fit in, I will cram them in and fit them in messily and it will all be okay. Then I've got my genre page here. There is a stamp here that didn't come out very well, so I might eventually cover that with another sticker if it really bugs me. And I decided this year I'm going to split my genres into fiction and non-fiction. And again, I'm going to make them up as I go. You probably can't read the writing, but of the 5 books I read in January, I've designated their genres. And I don't pre-fill this, I add genres as I read so that I don't have lots of empty space. Then Journey Through Time is where I log the dates published of all the books I've read. I go down in the decades from 2020 to 1900 and then I do hundreds for 1800, 1700, 1600. I'm not likely to read many past 1800, but then I always end up with 1 or 2 outliers. It's like I read the Odyssey in January, which is why 700 BC's there. But I do like seeing when the books I read have been published. And then the last spread I've done today is just an around the world list. So the nationalities of all the countries from where the authors were born. I'm quite pleased that already in January that my around the world list is being well populated. Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued whether this will look very different to 2022 and 2021, because in those years I was studying and I had literature curriculums that sampled lots of different countries' outputs, and this year I'm really determined to read for pleasure primarily. So I'm curious to see if on my own back, whether reading for pleasure, will this list be a lot shorter because I'm not reading to a curated curriculum, or will it be longer or just as long? Maybe my tastes are varied enough that I will stumble across lots of different countries and nationalities anyway. I really don't know. Anyway, surely that's enough rambling for one entry. That's my reading journal. The reading journal is now set up. I'm ready at the end of each month to log what I have been reading. I'm in the car waiting to pick Orla up from her busy social life, but I thought now would be a good chance to do a quick reading update. So first of all, I have finished the Marmalade Diaries. I finished this today. I really enjoyed this book. It was such a sweet story, and it's told in diary entries, which I quite like reading books in diary entry form, because the pacing, it's so fast paced. Oh, a street light has come on, so maybe I'll look a little bit less tired and grey now, or maybe more so. I don't know. It touches on topics like grief and I guess aging in general, and the struggle of the experience of aging and the lack of freedom, especially magnified because this was written during lockdowns and the pandemic, and the impact that had particularly on the elderly and on those trying to look after elderly loved ones. So it could have easily been quite grim, but it's not grim. It's very sweet, very hopeful. And I really enjoyed reading it. A lovely, look into human relationships and the human heart. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I would definitely read more of this author's work. He was, what's his name? Ben Aitken. I would read more of his work. I really enjoyed that. So now, my next read I've got in the car with me, and that is The Whispering House. So I'm going to read this, pick up Paula, and then go home. We're having a roast for dinner tonight, and then just some chill out time. It's got darker, but I just want to jump on because I'm on page 1 of the book, and already 2 bits have annoyed me, so I don't know if I'm going to finish this book or not. Okay, here are the 2 things that have annoyed me on page 1. The first person narrator is talking about a venue of her cousin's wedding, and she's just described how it looks very pretty, and the sea looks like a sheet of hammered gold beneath the sea, and the garden is beautiful and there's all flowers. And then the paragraph ends with, "If I were the kind of woman who fantasized about getting married, I'd want a wedding like that." Is that a hint of I'm not like other girls? Maybe. And then the next paragraph is, "You look lovely," my father said, studying our reflections in the pond. "A real picture." A picture of what, though? I was doing my best to make light of the whole thing. A picture of misery? It's not good if in the first 2 paragraphs of the book I'm already a bit annoyed with the narrator. She's a bit annoying already. That can't bode well. Happy Valentine's Day! It's the 14th of February today, and to celebrate, Orla has given me a little temporary tattoo of a heart, which is lovely. Rob's sick. Rob is poorly. Rob has been in bed for about 2 days now, so I'm hoping he feels better. So Orla and I have gone out today for a little Valentine's Day shop and lunch out, which has been very nice. And then we've come back home, and it's time to confess to you that I think I'm in a little bit of a reading slump. So here's where we're up to. I am not doing well with the stack of books I got from the library, and I'm doing so badly with it that I think it is more of a me problem than a them problem. So let's see. I finished the Marmalade Diaries. This was excellent. We already talked about Mr. Cadmus. I hadn't got on with that, so I stopped reading it. Then I tried to read The Whispering House, and I think I filmed a little bit of me in the car talking about this, but again it was getting really dark, so I don't know whether that footage is usable or not. But within the first page there's a "I'm not like other girls" line, and that put me off. And within the first 10 pages I just didn't like the writing style. So this one isn't for me. So then I tried The Escape, and again I got about 30 pages in, but the narrative of the other sister investigating the vlogger sister who's gone missing just didn't quite ring true for me. So I also gave up on that quite quickly. Oh, and also I gave up on this quite quickly because, let me try and hold this up. So you see the house on the cover here. Okay, beautiful building on the front cover. The building on here does not match the description of the house, the chateau in the book, and that drives me crazy. The house in the story has a turret, has green shutters on the window, has a courtyard, has a statue, a fountain in the courtyard, has gargoyles. It's a French chateau. I don't know what that is. but I'm not seeing any green shutters. I'm not seeing a turret. I am not seeing a courtyard. I am not seeing a fountain. And that annoyed me. And that's not really fair because it's not the book's fault that the cover doesn't match. Maybe this is a different house that turns up later in the story. I didn't really give it long enough to find out. And then I started The Lip, which was better. I enjoyed this writing style more, was slightly more interested in this, and I got to about 80 pages in, and then again just kind of realised I was bored and didn't want to read further. I just felt like I was reading for the sake of reading. And that's when I think I might be in a slump, because honestly everything in this book means I should love it, and I didn't, and I couldn't get into it. So this is me saying I think it's a me problem, not a them problem. So then I started reading On the Marsh by Simon Barnes, and the good news is that I do enjoy this and I am enjoying the writing style, but I have been reading it for about 5-6 days now, and I actually am not very far into it, so I'm only reading it in very small chunks, maybe even just about 20 pages a day, which is not a lot for me. So I am in a little bit of a reading slump, and of course, very irresponsibly of me, what do you do when you're in a reading slump? You acquire more books. So I went to my book club on Monday night. I'm part of a book club with some friends from university, and one of my friends this time turned up with a huge bag full of vintage, like 70s and 80s horror books that she wanted to unhaul. So we laid them all out on the table, and it was a bit of a very friendly frenzy, and I got a few books to take away. So I've got Lupe. Next book is The Fury. I mean, just look at that for creepiness. I love it. And then this is The Necromances. I just think this looks like a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to reading that. And then the last book I've acquired, this is a self-published book by another friend, Alison Hammond, and it's called Selfie Stick. So Alison was another friend who was on the same course as me doing English literature and creative writing, and she has published this book since we graduated. And one of the joys of doing that course is you get to read other people's writings with a critical eye. Alison's writing, there was particularly one story that she wrote for an assignment that I read that moved me to tears, and that I could not stop thinking about in like the weeks and months afterwards. She is a very honest and authentic writer and a wonderful person. So this is about large family vlogging, YA, romance, identity issues, so I'm looking forward to reading this. Hi, it's the 20th of February today. I'm in the car about to the school run, and it's chucking down with rain, so I just hope that the sound quality is going to be okay on this video. I wanted to say that I have finished On the Marsh by Simon Barnes. I can't remember if I've already told you what this book is about, but it's non-fiction, and it's about Simon and his family who take over 8 acres of marshland near their house in Norfolk and look after it, and this follows their nature and conservation enterprises over the course of a year. This was a really beautiful book, and I've so enjoyed reading it. I really enjoy nature writing, and I've enjoyed reading this slowly over the last couple of weeks. One thing that Simon Barnes enthuses about so passionately is listening to birdsong, and he's so convincing that I have become more attuned to the birdsong myself. So I have found myself going out into the garden a few times this week. There's a car gonna park next to me. Don't do it. Park anywhere else. Yeah, they've parked somewhere else. So I found myself going into the garden a few times this week just to listen to the birdsong and see if I enjoy it too. And it turns out I did. I've really, yeah, the book's influenced me. And I like that. I like when what I read, I don't know, inspires me to go do something or try something, and especially with nature books. And the thing I'm going to take away from On the Marsh is just making more time to go sit and enjoy outside spaces. I often walk through outside spaces, and I garden, and I look after things and I've got jobs to do, but to just sit and be without doing stuff and to listen to the birds and just notice things, that appealed to me really strongly. It comes across so beautifully in the book, and I want to do more of that. And I also I had a thought that I kind of wanted to share. So I've read this month only 2 books, On the Marsh and the Marmalade Diaries. Both non-fiction books, both kind of part memoir, both male authors. And the thing that struck me most about both of them, that's kind of got me thinking, is that in both books, the male authors were also being caregivers for people. So in the Marmalade Diaries, the author is being a caregiver to an elderly woman who he house shares with. And, you know, he has to be mindful of her needs. He took her to appointments, he was looking after her. And in On the Marsh, Simon has a 15-year-old son, Eddie, who has Down syndrome. And Simon has a wife as well, and he credits his wife for doing the majority of the childcare and lots of stuff around the house. He speaks very respectfully about his wife and appreciates all that she does, and that comes across really strongly in the book. But he is also too clearly a very active parental role in his son's life. And I think what struck me most about these 2 books, it was just hearing male authors talk passionately and reflectively about the value of having a caring role for somebody else. I think I've been very aware recently of just how important that is in life, and sometimes it gets relegated to just women's roles. You know, women, you look after children, but also it's often daughters who end up looking after their parents later on in life. And that can take up substantial time and energy and emotional resources, but it's also a huge privilege. And I think both of these books were kind of honouring the privilege of caring for one another. And I found it really moving in both books. It wasn't really the primary aim of On the Marsh. You know, it is written as a nature book, but that's also about caring for nature. And maybe I'm rambling here, but it struck me that as worthwhile that these 2 male authors valued the time and effort and energy of being in a caring role for somebody else, and not just as it's a job worth doing, but it's rewarding and important and beneficial to everybody involved, and those relationships and connections are special. That felt like a ramble, but I'm just trying to say that those books were important and moving to me, and I've really appreciated reading them. So I'm surprised by my reading so far this February. I've only read 2 books. They're both non-fiction, which isn't normally what I read a lot of, but I've really appreciated them, and I feel like they've spoken to me and hopefully influenced me in a positive way. My next book I don't think is going to be quite as moving or heartwarming, but I do think it's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. That is The Picture House Murders by Fiona Veitch Smith. This was the book that Rachel got me for Christmas in like the blind date for book parcel. So this is a murder mystery book, Art Deco, 1920s, cinema, murder. Time for a change of pace in my reading, I think, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. Okay, today is the 27th of February. After a few lovely sunny days over the weekend, the rain and the cold has come back. It has been a frosty start this morning, and I think today will be my last video entry for February. So let me tell you where I'm up to book-wise. I finished The Picture House Murders. I enjoyed this. This is a very solid, fun murder mystery story set in 1920s Newcastle. Really enjoyed this book. So thank you, Rachel. Very good Christmas present. So I finished that, and then I've just picked up and started reading yesterday The Two Towers by Tolkien. I want to continue my Tolkien studying this year, so Two Towers is next on my list to read. It's been a while since I've revisited this book, But I started it yesterday and I think I'm up to like the first 100 pages already. The Two Towers start so strongly. Kind of a known thing now where in fantasy trilogies, the second book often is a little bit weaker because I guess with an overarching fantasy stories, like you know where you start off and you know where you want to end, and sometimes the middle book can be a bit filler. But Lord of the Rings was written originally as one long story, not as 3 books. And I think that really shows in the Two Towers because we just dive straight back into action. And if I remember rightly, this book is quite exciting from beginning, middle to end, and it just keeps ramping up and up and up. So I'm already enjoying myself reading this, and this will obviously see me into March because I don't think I'm going to finish it in the next couple of days. Then I have acquired a few more books, and I'm realising that this month I will have only read 3 books, and I think I've acquired 6 books. 7, I've forgotten one, hang on, I'm going to get one more book. Okay, so the first book that I have to show you is Jane Eyre. This is the Cranford Collection edition. I found this in TK Maxx whilst we were shopping for birthday presents for other things. I saw this and they had quite a few of these editions. They had some Jane Austen and Wuthering Heights. I was very tempted to get more than one. So Jane Eyre is a book that I actually already owned. In fact, this is my 3rd copy of Jane Eyre that I've bought. So I had one that I read in high school, which was just like a penguin paperback, and it had my notes all over it. There wasn't anything special about it. And then last year I bought this copy of Jane Eyre. Let me hold it the right way up. This copy of Jane Eyre, which is very funky. It's a nice cool purpley pink colour. It's got the pink edges, and I thought that was really cool, so I bought it. But when I saw this edition, I just thought this is more my style than this. I think this is fantastic, I think it's beautiful, but this is more me. So I feel a bit wasteful buying another copy of Jane Eyre, but this is going to be my forever copy, and I'm going to find a new home for this one. Okay, so then after that I've acquired 2 more books. This is because I'm currently doing a Masters in Publishing at UCLan, and my tutor had a bunch of books that they were giving away, and they put them all out and said choose any books that you want. So I picked up 2. The first is Dear Reader by Paul Fournel, and this looks like a little comedic, I imagine a fiction story, I think it's a fiction story, that's about working in publishing, and it looked fun and cute, so I thought, nah, I'll take that one. And then the other one I took was, what's this one called? Bizarre Books, an extraordinary collection of the weirdest excesses of authors, publishers and bibliophiles. So I think this is a non-fiction book all about the strangest books that have ever been published. I thought that's fun. I mean, it's quite funny. These are the books I picked up. There were so many practical and useful books. There were books on marketing, on Photoshop, on design, on typeface. Probably a lot more practical and useful books for somebody who might want to work in publishing. And I just picked the fun books. But I do really care about my degree, and I hope I do well in it. Okay, and then the final book I've picked up, and should definitely be the last book purchase I make this month, is The Ninth Girl by Tami Hoag? I'm not sure how we say that surname. This is a book for my university book club. I believe it's a thriller and a murder mystery, and I don't know much more about it, and I don't think I need to know much more about it to dive into that. So I guess in February I've had a slow reading month. I finished 3 books. I've acquired 7 books, so that's not great maths. But I have had fun reading, and I've enjoyed the books I've read. In March's reading journal, I hope you will see me finishing The Two Towers. I'd like to read the next book in Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive, and I'd like to read The Ninth Girl. Something else I would really like to do in March is have a dedicated reading day. I like to take a Saturday, make no other plans except to have like a cosy stay-at-home day, maybe a little bit of baking, maybe a little bit of gardening, but mostly set it aside for reading. I'd really like to do that, a recharge reading day. That will just depend on whether family plans and other responsibilities allow that to happen, but if I can, I'd love that to happen in March. I hope you've enjoyed my February reading diary. Rachel too should have a reading diary coming out. We haven't discussed yet whether mine or hers is coming out on Friday or Saturday, which way around it is. So if today's Friday, Rachel's is coming out tomorrow. If today is Saturday, Rachel's video came out yesterday and you should check it out. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this, please do consider liking and subscribing to our channel. That would be wonderful. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. See you next time. Bye. I've lost the remote. I shoved it behind me and now I can't find it. Where's the remote? I really lost the remote. The remote was under the books.